Dr. Kate Tulenko, she's the CEO of the global health firm Corvus Health. So, foreign brands still the most popular option for formula in China many years later. What has that done to the global market, and why do you think that is still the case?
Well, there have been a number of effects that the fact that Chinese consumers are going abroad to buy their infant formula. There have been shortages in quite a number of countries, including New Zealand, Australia, and the United Kingdom. For example, when you think of it, just a few percentage point shifts in behavior of Chinese consumers can shift world markets. For example, there are more babies in China than there are people in New Zealand. And part of the reason why the Chinese consumers still are going with the global brands, despite the fact that Chinese formula is now one of the most regulated formulas in the world, is really that just dramatic loss of trust. If there's anything that a parent can do for their child, it's give them healthy food. And I think the scandal that happened 10 years ago, it's going to take a long time for that trust to be regained.
You touched on the growth, and now there is no longer the one-child policy. Mm-hmm. Can we expect that to grow even more as families continue to add babies?
Yes. So it's currently a $20 billion market, the infant formula market in China, and is expected to continue to grow. And one of the reasons for the growth is relatively aggressive advertising of baby formula companies. And so as China considers its policies, there are a number of things perhaps that it should do. Chinese women have one of the lowest rates of breastfeeding in Asia. About 21% of Chinese women do exclusive breastfeeding up through 6 months. And so the Chinese government could consider policies that make it easier for women to breastfeed. For example, having maternity leave, or more companies having daycare on site so women can breastfeed and then work, or making it easier to pump and store.
And look, formula is very expensive, yes, regardless of whether it's domestic or yes, import. It's very expensive. And, mm-hmm, and you mentioned the numbers in China, but it seems globally, less than 50% of all women exclusively breastfeed. That's yes, actually lower, and it's even lower in urban areas than, yes, than rural areas. Why the contradiction?
Yes. Well, breastfeeding is often seen as old-fashioned, whereas using formula is seen as very modern and doing what's best for your baby. Whereas when you actually look at the evidence, children who are breastfed have fewer infections, and then as adults, they're less likely to have obesity and less likely to have diabetes. And when you think of it, what's going on in China is almost a trust tax, because every dollar that Chinese parents spend on foreign formula is a dollar that they can't spend on health or education or housing or investment. And so it is a big challenge.
And what would you say, generally over the years, especially the last decade since, mm-hmm, this tragedy happened, mm-hmm, has formula changed? Is it better? Is it healthier?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I would say without a doubt that formula in China is safer. In January of this year, the Chinese government instituted some sweeping reforms, which our previous commentator mentioned. All the formulas have to be registered. Companies can only produce a limited number of formulas. Everything has to be tested. So this is definitely a huge improvement. There's no doubt about that.
And how long before we see the tide turn and maybe more Chinese families will, mm-hmm, will buy domestic brands?
It could still be another 5 or 10 years. These things, these fears die slowly, so it could actually be quite a while.
All right, Kate Tulenko, always great to hear your thoughts. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.